do our little icebreaker bit, and we are live. So, man, I always like to, get things going with something that just makes sense. Current events, uh, things that we pay attention to in the media space um, that we value sometimes too much,
Right.
um, way overvalued in most cases. Um, Let me check this real quick. Have you decided to go live at any point on your regular Facebook page?
Actually, I had a series going on last year where I was
Mhm.
going live, but up to the rollout of my last book, I had to stop to focus on publishing my book. So I was going live for consistently, actually, for a week by week, but then leading up to my book rollout, I had stopped.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm glad that you got your book completed so you can do this because I'm kind of like in the same space where you are. Believe it or not. Well, you would understand it. You already a published author. You know what I'm saying? We already get it. I want to say welcome to everybody that's showing up. We just running our mouths a little bit, but you are now tuned in to the Accountable Masculinity Spotlight, where we feature creators, of respective brands, so they get a chance to promote their stuff, showing how social media is supposed to create interconnectivity and networking opportunities too. And you are now tuned in with Jamar Camper here on Code Talk, the Accountable Masculinity platform, um, and we are just talking about the trial and error of what it takes to create something, stand behind it, and be consistent with it. So, kind of walking into the conversation, and I'm working on my third book too. So,
Oh,
which
wow.
we call the Code of Accountable Masculinity. I had to figure out how I wanted it to look, and spin off the code, the first book right here. I always got to promote. You know what I'm saying? I haven't. I looked at the excerpts on your book and didn't get a chance to study it in great detail, but the title itself says what it's supposed to say. And then with a man of your experience, um, at 36 years of age, to have that opinion that's buried deep inside of you enough makes you passionate enough to write about it. So, um, before we get into the questions, what should everyone know about Jamar Camper, the the sniper? You know what I'm saying? Tell the people what they need to know about you.
Absolutely. Number one, I want to say thank you for inviting me on your platform. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity. Of course, want to wish you the most success as possible, and any way I can contribute to that, I'm here for that. So thank you. Number one. But Jamar Camper, you should know that I'm a straight shooter. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. I'm going to give you my true, honest, objective opinion. You don't have to worry about, is he talking someone else's words, or is he, saying the popular opinion? You're going to get me, 100%. So I think that's the top thing you should know about me.
Awesome, man. Let's see, what kind of inspired you to become a writer, and you know what I'm saying, and I guess what's your big picture view of what you want to accomplish as a writer?
Absolutely. So I think, one of my favorite authors, probably my favorite, but definitely, top three is Robert Greene. He's, obviously the author of 48 Laws of Power. And I read his book, Art of Seduction,
Mm-hmm.
several years ago. I was a young man. And that was really the spark in me to say, I think I can do this too, because of the content that he was writing about, the subject matter, but the way he was just so bold in his statements. So that is what really sparked me to say, I think I can write too. And I always had a hinge for it, but I think after reading that book, I kind of made a choice that at some point in life, I will definitely write a book.
Word. So you just drew inspiration from like very direct communication. Just being deliberate about it. I like that too, man. I've read pieces of the 48 Laws of Power, and I think once I start seeing which direction it's going, I try not to get too immersed in somebody else's writing style, so I
Mm,
don't get mine entangled with somebody else's. Because you can still have your own thought, but you want to have your own delivery. And
right.
that's why like, I was very very keen about the next question is can you walk us through your writing process? How do you go about crafting a story or a novel, or like whatever your I guess what do you think your intent is, like, while you're writing?
Absolutely. So, and you just made a great point because when I start my writing process, one of the number one things I do is I make sure that I do not read a book, any other book, right? I make sure I don't read any other book other than what I need to read out of it, right? So if I'm researching or if I'm looking at a particular book, I will only read the necessary 3 to 4, 5, 10 pages of the book, and then I put it down. Because I don't want to be too influenced by, like you said, any other writer. I don't really care about their style. I'm trying to 100% deliver me. So that's super important, right? That's one of the top things, actually. Then I have to go into what do I want to accomplish with said book, right? So my first book is called Supernatural Confidence. I have to really sit down with myself and say, okay, what am I really trying to say here? What am I trying to deliver here? What am I trying to get people to see? So Supernatural Confidence is a lot about my own personal story of having confidence and building it. And of course, talking about the time that I did not have confidence, the times that I did not believe in myself, right? It even takes confidence to write a book. So that's also intertwined in the experience of them reading it. So I think number one is don't be too influenced by any other writer style or what's popular at the time. I think number two is I had asking yourself, what are you trying to accomplish here? What's your main goal? What's the thing you're trying to say to the people? Because you can have a lot of thoughts, you can go in a lot of different directions, and that's something I also teach as far as when I do consultations, is that you can have 1,000 thoughts, but you need to have one main thought. You need to focus on that one main thought throughout the entire time of writing the book, because that's where you're going to draw inspiration from. What happens with a lot of authors is that they have 1,000 thoughts and they got 1,000 little notes around their house or their office or whatever, and it's all messy. So that's why they never complete the book. Is because their body's being pulled in 1,000 different directions. They want to write about this. They don't know if should write about this. Should they mention this? Have one main thought about the book and then go from there, and then it'll start flowing.
I agree with that. It's kind of like you. I don't know if you remember in school where you had like writing or either literature or some whatever equivalent, and you do free writing, rough drafts, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to really believe in what you're writing down, because like when you try to go back and shape it and put an outline to it, you know, it either matches or it doesn't, and
Right.
it doesn't mean it's useful. It just doesn't fit, and I think that when you're a writer, there's really like no all or none. Everything's useful. It just doesn't fit all the time. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So
Right.
that's kind of like so because I agree with you when you say no, I don't read everybody's stuff. I don't read it in its entirety. I try to get the point, extract, what the intent is, and then I move on. And then I look at it like I try to look at their structure. Sometimes just compare how I'm delivering my message versus how they were able to deliver their message. And it's kind of you ever heard of brand modeling?
Yes.
That's kind of what it is. When you think about it in comparative terms, like you don't go copy exactly what somebody else does. You
Right.
just look at the structure of how they're delivering their message, how you received it, and see if you can do the same thing. And if you got to adjust it, you know, you got the bandwidth to do that, because you're the person that's the source of the information. So it's really all on you. It just got to be bold enough to do it and click publish when you
Absolutely.
do it yourself. So, man. I appreciate that. It's good. It's refreshing to hear somebody else think the same way or and be able to explain it the way that you think, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, question number 3. We got 10 questions. We might go through them pretty quickly. We might not. You know, it's all depending on you. You tell me everything you need to discuss about it, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So, what do you think sets your writing apart from other authors in your genre?
Well, of course, I'm in self-help. That's the main genre that, I write in. Of course,
Mhm.
I include stories within my books, but the overall objective and mission is to help someone within the stories I tell. I would say that probably the top thing that separates me is I'm not afraid to say things that other authors might be afraid to say, because
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily trying to catch everybody. That's never been my goal. It's never been, my mission to say, "Oh, I'm for everybody." I definitely am. I feel like I'm an artist, because I feel like authors are artists.
They are.
So I feel like I'm an artist that I'm for the people that's for me, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So I never been the type to say, okay, I'm trying to sell my book is a general thing for everybody. No, my book is for who it's for. It's going to speak to whoever it speaks to. So I think the top thing that separates me is not being afraid to say the things that other authors are definitely probably going to hold back on. They're going to say, that's offensive, you shouldn't say that. Um, of course, I have rules. Everything has to have structure. So I'm very structured in my writing. But as far as the content, I can't necessarily worry about who am I offending, especially if I have a very genuine concern about the writer. And if I'm really trying to help the writer, then I must deliver the truth in what I'm saying. And of course, like I said, whoever it's for, they'll get it, they'll pick it up. Even if they don't pick it up that day they read it, maybe down the line, it'll come back to their brain and then they'll be like, okay, I see what he was talking about, or I see what he meant.
Yeah, I think that's always the hardest part is being personable. Like sometimes, there's so many different communications. You got body language, you know, face to face communication. We're using the internet right now and somewhat having a face to face conversation, obviously. Um, but it's not the traditional in person, but that's not a negative thing. It's just
Right.
another medium. And what people read versus how they internalize it and then make whatever assumptions about the writer or the author of the thought is way different when you can read a person's body language and be able to talk to them in person to see how committed they are to the words they choose, right?
Mhm.
And and this is why I say in most cases you live in your feelings until you meet the facts. When
Mm.
you, you know what I'm saying? Like you talked about your journey on a small level about confidence. You had to have confidence to do anything of value,
Right.
and regardless of the feedback, you still accomplish something. That most people don't do. In terms of either
Absolutely.
write a book or either read a book.
Yeah.
so so when you have your opinions and people disagree with you, you can kind of like look at them saying, "Hey, man, whatever you want to be upset by, that's your choice. I made a choice to communicate my opinion on it,
Right.
and somebody's going to have value. So I completely co-sign that your work is for the person that needs it. It's not
Right.
for a specific demographic. The demographic is the person that needs it because somebody needs to have somebody reflect their views of the world somewhere.
Right.
And if one person can pick it up, thousands will pick it up.
That's how it works, man. And just to add on to that point is a book is a form of communication, right? So you're starting off with, yes, it's your words on pages, but then you're conveying your message once it's bought, right? No matter where it is in the world. So I look at it this way: the person that needs my book, they're walking around, maybe at that moment they don't know they need the book. That doesn't mean that the book is useless. That's
Yeah.
why I say that I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. And I think, more people need to realize, in this modern societies, that it's okay that you're not going to reach everybody. Everyone's not going to understand you at the same time.
Very true, man. Like, this is why I say all things are true,
Mm,
because it's true for your understanding.
right.
The
Right.
understanding you have right now is completely valid to how it applies to your life. And somebody can observe it and say, I wouldn't do that, but you can't go in and actually rearrange that person's life to configure that specific moment to your understanding. You know what I mean? It's just too
Right.
many things that lead up to it. Like, you watch enough time travel movies and TV shows, you're like, let them have it. You just gotta let people live with what they understand, and until they reach a point of intersection where they can actually take in somebody else's opinion.
Hmm.
Because there's somebody out there that is living a version of a life that you want.
Mm.
And I think books are kind of like the blueprint to understanding how there's other ways to think.
Right.
So
Right.
I dig it, you know what I'm saying, when you come down to just being an artist. So, you know, I agree with that too, because not very many people, I think everybody has the capacity to teach somebody else something. But the I think the self work that it takes in order to be brave enough and confident enough to write it down, structure it, publish it, read your own book 17 times before you decide to let it fly, decide what the cover is going to look like. That's a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
yeah, you're right. You don't have to, cater to a specific genre, and without being too brash about it. Just say, hey, man, my work is for the person that needs it.
That's it.
Yeah, man, I,
Yep.
I like that answer, man. Uh, we're gonna move on to question number 4. Let's see here. Take this one. Boom. How do you balance your creative vision with the expectations of your readers and publishers?
Oh, wow.
It's a little bit
I
more
mean,
detailed than the previous question, so I'm gonna give you a second to marinate on that, because I know it almost sounds identical, but like
right.
there's some, I interpret the question,
Mhm.
where like you don't want your vision altered, but you want your message to be communicated.
Right. Right. Right.
So
I'm a blend it. I'm a blend a little bit of the last question, and then I'll get into this question, because you spoke
okay,
about everybody has something to teach, and I think that's a very profound statement, because one time I was speaking and I was talking about that we dismiss people who have failed at something, right? We dismiss everybody who has failed at something, but what those people who have failed should do is they should teach what they what they failed at, right? So we always discourage people who have failed at something. We condemn them, we put them down, but those are some of the main people that who should have the spotlight on them. The people who have failed at marriage, the people who have failed at relationships, the people who have failed at business, or even a book per se. Those are some of the main people who should have a platform to speak, because they probably could teach some of the things that they failed at to people who really, really need it. Now you talk about expectations with the creative vision. I mean, I think that you should always be cognizant of your audience, be cognizant of who you're trying to reach, right? And why you're trying to reach them. A wise man once said, give people the chicken sandwich they want, right? So, you know, you got to give the people what they're hungry for, definitely. And that you can do that in different ways. That's why I'm so keen on, when I do consultations with first time authors. That's why I'm so keen on making sure that the cover, right, really conveys your message, but is also attractive. So we have to balance that out. Statistics say that 30% of your sales is going to come from the book cover alone. So you have to balance between you having this creative vision and this unique message, but also guess what? You also have to make it sexy, make the cover attractive, make it, look like something that someone wants to read. So I think it's about, have this creative vision, go wild, go crazy, but always be cognizant of what you're really, who you're trying to reach and what's going to be attractive to them. So it's like a volley. It's like the tennis ball going back and forth. It's a balance. One side can't dominate. You can't. I don't really think you can have a successful product if you always just keep doing everything that your quote unquote audience tell you to do. But at the same time, I don't think you can have a successful product if you don't care about what your audience is telling you, what they want to hear from you. So it's a balance. I don't really get too caught up in the expectations, because I think that you will suffer that way. And then you'll start writing another book that you didn't expect to write or even want to write. But am I, like I said, in the back of my mind, do I think about, okay, do people want to read this? Yes, of course. I have to be realistic. But I don't get too caught up in it. So I don't even, the word expectations, especially when I'm going through the writing process, it's kind of like a third tier word for me. It's there, it's in the room. We're not going to disrespect expectations, but we're not going to, make it the forefront.
I like the different elements that you brought up about, like, how you mix the expectations of yourself versus the audience that you're trying to reach, because it's a delicate dance, with maintaining your individuality and not being controlled by other people's expectations.
Right.
And I think very few people take that into consideration. Like, the person is an artist, so you're gonna have to, like, if you don't like what I wrote, go buy my old one. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what you want to say, but,
right.
but you're like, I'll take that into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find the nice way to say, wait your turn. You know what I'm saying? Because I got a million ideas that are lined up, and it takes a lot for me to get focused to line them up as well. So, which feeds into the next question. Check this out. How do you handle writer's block or other challenges that arise during the writing process?
Great question. So, and I'm bringing up things that I also teach people that I consult as well. When I'm experiencing writer's block, the number one thing I do is acknowledge that I have writer's block, and I have to get to the bottom of why I have it. So when I have writer's block, I stop writing. Some people say you should keep writing, you should keep, pushing forward, keep pushing forward. I stop because there's a reason why my creative process is not raining how it usually does. And until I at least know the foundation of that, then I'm wasting everybody's time. So what I do is I believe that I just might take a day off. I might take a couple days off. I've definitely taken up to a week, 2 weeks off from writing, just no writing at all, mm-hmm. to get to the bottom of my creative process. Now you said other challenges, which is key too. One of the most important things you need to realize is that when you're writing a book, everybody in the world is going to pretend you're not writing a book. Right?
Yeah.
So what that means is that you should know, or before you even start writing, you have to realize that, yes, to you, that book is super important. It's definitely, it's important in general, but it's super important to you. To everyone else, it's not that important.
They don't care.
They don't care, right? So you might even tell, and I tell people, I teach them is, hey, you might say, hey, I'm writing from 7 to 8, right? Until people recognize you as a writer, they're going to keep calling you. They're going to keep texting you. They're going to keep interrupting you with all types. They're going to tell you about the new show that's on TV. They're gonna text you about everything about your book, right? They're gonna text you anything that's not about your book. They're gonna text you about. So those are the challenges that one faces greatly during the writing process.
Man, I think writing is not just therapeutic, but it's almost therapy
Definitely.
because you get a chance to air out your grievances and in
Mm-hmm.
a way where you can articulate what bothers you. Because with social media over the last 10 years, you went from writing long, like wordy posts that nobody got the message of, and it's like I got to find a different way to get this message out because it's important. Other people see that it's important. They reinforce it, and then you go get it packaged up in a way where after you fight through your own insecurities about it and gain the confidence that it takes to, you know, see it through to completion. That even after you do it, people just think it just happens out of midair. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And they think that since you already do it, they don't have to. They don't realize that they violating your boundaries. But unless you're willing to go disconnect and turn off everything and go somewhere and just write and and be in a place where you can't be accessible,
Right.
then nobody can understand it. So um, the challenge of like the writer's block, I think it's like par for the course. It's about what do I want to turn off and what am I trying to turn on in my head, to get me tapped in. Because when you get going, you visualize yourself just on the keyboard and not letting it go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man, that the other challenges that arise during the writing process, sometimes it's just other people. And really, if you as a writer, when you individually take accountability, is your accessibility to other people.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you acknowledging that, man. That's pretty dope. So because these are things I've never had a consult on writing a book. I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing somebody else, kind of like we were talking about the 48 laws and not reading it in its entirety, but
Right.
I'm getting the pieces that I already knew for myself, but somebody else is verbalizing it. That's
Right.
that lets you know when you're on your path and on your purpose, in my opinion. We'll move on.
Absolutely.
We'll move on to question number 6. All right. How do you approach character development in your stories, and what techniques do you use to create compelling and memorable characters?
Great question. So people have different ways of going about character development. I think for me, before I write the story, um, I think about the characters. I think about their strengths and weaknesses right away.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think that's most important in my opinion. Um, I think you have to give your characters limitations
Yeah.
up front to make them realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think if you want a great story, then you have to look at what's the limitations on each character, because that'll tell you, how great your story could be. So every character is not going to have patience.
No.
every right, every
Yeah.
character is not going to be this jolly, good to go person all the time. Sometimes characters are going to be angry. Sometimes characters are going to be emotional. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
characters are going to be lost, right? And you have to get to the bottom of that to have a great story. So character development to me is about knowing what's a character's strength, what's their weakness. One character might have the capacity of patience, right? The other character might not. That's something that you have to show the contrast between in the story to convey a great story. I think character development also is about digging into why each character is the way they are. So when you talk about, one character might have a backstory of, childhood failure, abuse, and that's why they are the way they are now. You might need to do a flashback on each character. right? To tell a little bit about why are they are. So you'll place certain things within the story to say, oh, that one time when I was 16, I did such and such,
Yeah.
or whatever, something in college, something, it might be traumatizing, it might not. Sometimes it might be a breakthrough moment as well. So I think those are the foundations of character developments. Like I said, when I do character development, I take one page and I write up one. I write a notes. I write at least a page. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that for each character, they have their own page, and I write notes until that page is full of that character. So there might be personality traits, might be a backstory, might be things. It might be their own goals that they're trying to achieve. You know what I'm saying? Somebody might have a goal of being more loving. You gotta convey that. Maybe they want to be more loving, but they don't know how to. Right? Maybe they have emotional turmoil inside. Everybody's at war with what self. So these are things you have to convey with characters, and don't just start writing the story crazy and thinking, okay, I wrote a great story, because without you really digging into those characters, you don't have a story.
No, you don't. You got like a lot of surface level Hollywood type of, you know, like Tubi movies. No,
Oh man.
hey, no, ain't no Tubi movies at all. Because you know what I'm saying. Anytime, any way you can get your creative thoughts out, I'm all for it. But like, you know, you don't want to write a book with depth and brevity and have shallow characters that are no more effective in the story than a random social media post.
Mm.
And I think that that's the influence of uh, social media in terms of like the writing process and understanding how dynamic each individual character is. Because the way we use social media is basically for analytics. It's definitely interaction, but it's analytics too, because somebody's going to give you a different opinion on whatever your thought is that you may not have considered.
Mm-hmm.
Because people read stories, they either relate to it or they're completely obtuse to it because it's an anecdotal experience, it's an anecdotal opinion, but it still counts to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
So that is very key in character development because you want to be able to relate to the person that's trying to improve. Like you just said, the breakthrough moments, like all everything you just captured in that answer answers a whole lot of questions, because it makes you look at each individual character like I do like a personal data sheet on whoever I'm talking about. Like I come up with, like you just said, that goals and dreams, the data where they live, whatever the economic situation is, because that impacts how they
Mm-hmm.
move throughout. Because you can't simulate rich characters that don't have money. You know what I'm saying? Unless there's a story on it about them being a fraud eventually.
Right.
Because that's the end item. You see the end, and you know how you want to reach your reader, and that's about knowing your audience, and that makes you have to be more deliberate about telling the story of each individual character and how they shape the overall picture, which is not easy to do all the time.
Absolutely.
But it's necessary. The things that's necessary ain't usually easy.
There it is. Absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah, because like nobody wants to get up and go walk through wet grass to put the trash on the curb, but you really don't want to load up the garbage can and go find out where to go dump it either.
Exactly.
Pick your poison.
Pick your
So
heart.
yeah, for real, pick your heart. Let me see. Let's go on to question number 7. How do you research and gather information for your writing projects, particularly if you're writing about a topic or setting that you're not familiar with?
Another great question. So people have
I
their
could
own
I
way.
could answer a lot of these questions the way that you answer them like off the bat. So this is really good.
um, so people have their own way of doing research. Some people immediately dive right into other books, books that have a lot of data, a lot of stats, and I'm not here to hate on that. Definitely need that as well. I think that's a component of it. I think for me, the top thing that I do is I love one-on-one interviews with experts in that field or topic, right? So when I wrote The Day She Learned Chess, which is for women, I spoke with a lot of people about the different subjects. So one of the things that I talked about is mother-daughter relationships. So I got an expert who did write a book about that. We had a very, very in-depth conversation that was very insightful. The things that I didn't even know were not even knowledge of about mother-daughter relationships and dynamic and why there's a breakdown in society regarding a lot of mother-daughter relationships. So my top way is I identify 5 to 10 different people on the subject that I want to attack, and I'm saying, and I basically try to pin down, okay, out of this 5 to 10, who can I realistically meet up with I'm gonna try for all 10, but who can I realistically meet up with and get to the bottom of, answer my questions.
Mm-hmm.
That, and of course they'll have credentials. They'll definitely be quoted. I'll give them their rightful place. But the most important thing is that they're going to tell me something that I could not get exactly from another book.
I love objective analysis. I like not knowing everything. I like thinking that my idea can be destroyed. So whatever your preconceived notions are, until you sit down and meet with a subject matter expert about something, you don't fully buy into it. You just buy into the theory, the concept, but you go into it hoping that you gain more information that proves what you already knew,
right?
Wipes it out completely and sends you back to the. I say this all the time, man. Sometimes I don't want to be right. Like the burden of being right and not telling everybody that you're right long before the situation plays out. That's only something that a writer can understand. Like we have to go make up other stories to prove the point in some cases. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because how many times if somebody asks you, hey, Jamar, what do you think about this? And then you tell them the facts based on what you understand. It plays out the way that you said it, and then they're mad at you because, like they asked your opinion and you didn't bless off on it with whatever their bias was.
Right.
So the objectivity that is required is a humble space to be in, because you could sit down and write something and just because you dedicated 90 straight days to it, you could be wrong.
Right.
You could be so wrong. You could be so imbalanced, and you could really, really shoot yourself in the foot and give yourself another hole to dig out of, because the hole that you have to come out of to even create it is something new. Imagine it getting destroyed after being published,
Yeah.
Oh man. No,
Yeah.
you got to be right. So, which goes back to one of the points you made before. You write for a specific audience, and you deliver the chicken sandwich that's being requested.
Exactly.
But you put your own sauce on it. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. You don't get the chicken sandwich, but don't question how it pulls up.
Right.
Yeah.
You're gonna get the chicken sandwich, but it's gonna be my sauce.
Yep.
My specialty, my whatever. But at the end of the day, you'll know, oh wow, I can see why he did what he did.
Absolutely. And for creative thinkers, sometimes it takes a book to explain the whole, mentality behind the words you use, because on social media, you can only use maybe 3 to 4 sentences to hold anybody's attention, before you engage them. So you got to make sure, again, the sniper talk, you got to use the most concise, amount of words and the least amount of sentences to get the person to talk. So reverse engineering the conversation is what we do. That's what books are for. That's what I think.
Exactly.
Yep. So we move on to question number 8, man. What advice would you give to aspiring writers who are just starting out in their careers?
Oh wow. I think top thing for me, when I became an author officially, or when I definitely made the firm decision to make an author, two things. Well, it's two parts, a two-part answer, really. Number one is don't listen to anybody who say you can't be an author, right? And not I'm not gonna go into the whole story, but in so many words, I was dating.
It's your platform, man. You tell the story you want to tell, man. You know what I'm saying?
I've told this story on my Facebook, but essentially, I was dating a woman, and we the relationship as far as us was okay, but as far as her parents, things were kind of dicey at times, unfortunately. And so it was around the Christmas time that I was at her parents' place, and everyone was having fun or whatever, drinking or etc. And then we were going around basically, and everyone was saying their goals for the new year, right? So everyone was going around saying their new goals. Now this is right when I have decided, all right, I'm gonna be an author. I'm gonna start writing, start taking it serious. Well, what happened was when it was my turn,
Mm-hmm.
I said, I decided I'm going to write a book next year for sure. And people were like, oh, wow, okay. That's a very ambitious goal. So for the most part, everyone was showing love, but unfortunately, one of her family members flat out said, you can't do that. Right.
Yeah.
And he went in. He said, you can't be an author. You don't have the credentials. You don't have the name. No one knows who you are. You're not famous. How can you succeed at writing a book? How will you finish? And he was dead ass serious, And of course, everybody in the room was just super quiet. And you can imagine it went from a very festive mood to a very serious.
Big hate. Big hate. That's what it, just call it what it is. It's just big hate, man. You know what I'm saying? So
right. Big hate. And I'm going to be very real with you and real with your audience, because I think they deserve authenticity. I let that moment freeze me up. Unfortunately, I let that moment speak to my soul. And for a long time, I thought I couldn't write a book. His thoughts penetrated me, unfortunately, in my head to say, hey, maybe he's right. No one knows who you are. No one knows, no one knows your name. I mean, you haven't wrote a book before. So why would you start now? You didn't go to school for journalism. The list goes on, man.
It's just
as you could imagine, anyway, in the moment, like I said, I was so shocked that he said this to me. He was so, bold, and he was so, he just knew for sure, like, hey, you need to give that up. You don't need to be a writer. You need to do something else. So I'm encouraging your audience tonight very strongly. Don't let anyone tell you can't be a writer. Don't let your lack of experience stop you from being a writer, right? Don't let that you didn't go to a prestigious school for writing stop you from being a writer. No one can tell you that you can't be a writer. If you want to write. That's simple, right?
It's really that simple.
It's really that simple. Now, like I said, that moment stopped me. It did. I'm, got to be real. And I begin to have all these doubts and go through this process of, man, maybe I should just give it up and go do something else or turn to another direction. Eventually, this is why the first book is so important. Eventually, I gained my supernatural confidence back, and I started to write the first book. Slowly but surely, I started to gain it back. And that's why what you said is so important about therapy. Writing is therapy, right? Because when I was writing that book, it wasn't like I had all the confidence in the world when I first started. right? I lacked a little confidence, but as I started to write more and more, as I started to do the process, I said, I can do this. I can do this. I can finish this. I'm a writer. And anyone who's watching it, oh, excuse me, anyone who's watching this tonight, look in the mirror and say, I'm a writer. I'm an author. I'm an artist. I know who I am. And I'm going to finish my mission and what I got to do, because that's what I had to do. And once I made that firm decision, like I said, I became a beast and I started writing. I wasn't going to let anyone deter me from my goal of completing a book and saying, and I gave myself the title of published author. I didn't wait for someone else to give it to me, right? That's super important as well. Now, that's the first answer. The second answer is, hey, when you decide to be a writer, there's going to be so many people pulling you in different directions. There's going to be so many people saying, go to this conference, go to this event, go to this. You're going to be that. And that's a mistake I made. I went to so many events, wasted so much time talking to two people who didn't have my best interests, right? So I was buying all types of little programs and, how to be an author workshops. And, basically it was a waste of time. It's so crazy. That's why I have so much valuable knowledge now to teach other people not to make the same mistakes I did. But I want to tell all the writers out there, if you're brand new, you're brand spanking new, or you might have been doing it for maybe a year or so, is stop going to every event. Stop feeling like, oh, if I don't go to this event, people not gonna know who I am. No, it's not about that. It's about you. It's about your art. It's about what you write about. It's about, can you convey being authentic in your message or whatever you're trying to accomplish? If you do that to the best of your ability, trust me, people are going to slowly know who you are, want to mess with you, want to do business with you, etc. The list goes on.
I love the way you articulated that message. I have a very succinct phrase that I like to say, or to capture that. I don't take constructive criticism from people that never constructed anything.
There it is.
Like, most people are in position to criticize another human being and what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, like, if you are in position to criticize, but you aren't producing anything, you that much less relevant.
Exactly.
So if you haven't constructed anything, you are not in position to criticize anything. You know what I'm saying? You have to start, and people don't understand completion. When you really think about it, right? Like you're 36, right?
36, yeah.
36. I'm 44. Most people haven't completed anything since high school.
Oh man, I got a saying that says high school's forever.
Hey, it is. Like, and then after that, the next major completion is going to be somebody completing college. But if you completed college and you're not working in the field, what did you do with the time? You know what I'm saying? It's no different than us writing 1,000 rough drafts on something and never completing it and publishing it. It's just a book of rhymes with dust on it sitting to the side somewhere.
Right.
So you got to complete something. And until you complete anything, you're probably not in a position to criticize anybody about that. Go do what your passion directs you to do. That's your purpose. So I appreciate that message right there. Let's move on to question 9. What are you working on currently, and what can readers expect from your upcoming projects?
Yes. So this year I am working on my 4th book. It's called The Power of Self: Unapologetic Masters of Manifestation. This book will be out in November, later this year. So going through the process right now, actually, as we speak. But this book will be mainly about, looking inward, looking at who you are, and basically asking a lot of key questions about life. Why do people like what they like? Why are we attracted to what we're attracted to? Why do we do the stuff that we do? So, of course, it won't answer these questions necessarily on a wide scale. It's mainly about asking you why you do what you do. And then once you know why you do what you do, you're able to I guess, help direct, or you're able to less the BS of what others do, right? When you don't know who you are, then people can direct you into a lot of different directions. People can tell you who you are when you don't know who you are. So that's why I call it the power of self, because once you realize that self power, then no one can come to you and say, hey, here's who you are. They can't, blow up and do all types of dumb magic tricks to misconceive you.
You know, that's like the unpacked way of saying I'm not gonna let anybody box me in,
Mhm.
because like you have to change, you have to adapt in order to
Right.
stay relevant. And by relevance, we're not just talking about popularity, we're talking about being applicable.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people, they have a ton of information, but no different than knowing some details out of the farmer's almanac. The information is valuable, but is it applicable to what the current discussion is?
Right.
Because what you don't want to do is write yourself into a box,
Hmm.
and then different than a typecast character. Because um, I think of things like, how successful can I be at this?
Hmm.
Because like, what if it's a hit? What if it gets picked up by somebody that takes the excerpt out of the book and they say, Jamar, I got your book, or because you're accessible. Somebody can go right on social media, inbox you. Like, people don't even ask for phone numbers anymore. They say, what's your IG?
Right.
So you can be found very quickly, especially if you got your name on a few different things.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the ability to not get boxed in is very critical. And that is an ability too, because you could easily let people define your path and never get out of the path that they put you on.
Right.
You look crazy. It's no different than, like, you take uh, comedians that try to make it in Hollywood as actors, and you only see them as just being funny. You never take them seriously.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So it's important that like, I guess it's about maneuvering your pieces, because one thing supports others. And then like, I'm kind of like where you are, and I should have written 4 books by now, but I've had to stop on a couple things because I do real estate, um, and I'm working on the merch, the podcast, to be able to have conversations like that. You have to get out of your box sometimes, because you already have a box that you're in that nobody else knows,
Right.
but they don't get to put you in that box. You get to direct traffic from your box.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
So
Super.
man, look, man, the supernatural confidence, the like the self help books, the and the, what do you call it, the manifestation of
Unapologetic masters of manifestation.
unapologetic man. Uh,
It's a
man,
tongue
look, it's a tongue twister. It got me,
twister.
So the whole nature of it is like becoming your own. You have to become your own creator.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
have to like look at yourself from a 30 to 60,000 foot view and direct yourself on the chessboard on what you want to go do. You can't just do it from, like right in front of you. Sometimes you're too close to it. So I get
Hmm.
it. All right, hit the last question right here. How do you handle criticism or negative reviews of your work? And what strategies do you use to stay motivated and continue producing new writing?
Woo, man, this could be a show. Right
By itself, right?
here.
Hey, look, that's why you got to come back. You know what I'm saying? So like, I want to be able to feature you on all of your work. And to anybody that's watching this, these are the type of questions, because we want to create true connectivity and understanding with the artist, in whatever their work might be, because this is what the goal should be, is to take social media, create a real community out of it, and share each other's talents.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so this is a multi-layered question. It's not a simple question.
Right.
Right. At the end of the day, you're still a human, right? You're still going to react to things. You're still going to have certain sentiments, right? You, as Erica Badu said, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm gonna say that when I'm criticized heavily on my work, the top thing I do is I have to objectively say or ask myself, is what the person's saying is true? Is it facts? Right? Is it facts? Even though it is an opinion, right? Can I use it to my advantage? I think that's number one, right? After I answer that question, I have to say, is this person saying this because they're triggered? If they're saying it from a triggered standpoint, then it kind of dilutes their answer or their criticism, right? I can't be responsible for what you're triggered by,
Nope.
right? That's not my job. My job is to put out the message, and you learn from it what you learn from it. You take from it what you take from it, right? So I think those are the two main things I do especially when someone goes hard in the paint. You know, and trust me, I get bad feedback sometimes, mainly positive, but every once in a while, for sure, I get, someone goes in, write a whole dissertation, whole PhD program. So, with that said, I asked, okay, is this person answering this from an objective standpoint or trigger? Like someone said for my book, When Men Were Men, they loved it. They really loved it, right? But you know how it is. They said, I wish you would have included just a little bit more research, right? It said that. So I went back in the book, obviously I know the book, I wrote it, but I went back through certain things and I just made a mental note of saying, okay, possibly I could have included a little bit more research, possibly. And I left it alone. But but the versus another situation where I had wrote something, and about the woman's book, and then the woman went on a personal tirade about something that was going on in her life, right? Mm-hmm. She wrote, "I've been through this. I've been
through therapy for."
Exactly, right? Something that she personally went through that I had nothing to do with, right? So in that case, it's not objective. It's personal. It had nothing to do with me. If anything, maybe my book should serve as the spark for your betterment. But she didn't take it that way. She took it as, oh, you personally are talking about me and my story. So I think that's my look at it. I think if you're an artist of any kind, no, people are going to negatively react to your work. They're going to. It is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it. At the end of the day, you have to say, okay, is this person coming from an objective, realistic point of view, or are they personally, telling you their story or testimony or whatever, and saying you're talking about me, you put me down, etc. And the strategies, I mean, each book I definitely go through, and I just look at what I could have done better, and I just use it for next time. So the Power of Self is coming out in November. The things I learned from Supernatural Confidence, I'm using to write this book. The mistakes I might have made in When Men Were Men, I'm using for this book. The things I might have had to tweak in The Day She Learned Chess, now the Power of Self gets to benefit from. So each book gets stronger.
Absolutely, man. I always say the truth is in the reviews. If you go on an Amazon product and you go read the reviews before you buy it, if you never experienced it, you kind of get a good idea if you're purchasing a good product because you're getting instant feedback.
Right.
And, so, and a question that's not listed up here because these was like my 10 basic questions I wanted to, like get answered, which you did a great job on, sir. I wish I had the applause sound. I don't have, all the other details and stuff up just yet. How hard was it for you to write your third book?
Oh
Because
man.
because before you answer that, like the reason this is personal for me because um, I my first book, I basically scrubbed my first. I had a Facebook page that got fried, but I scrubbed it before it got fried.
Mm.
I really sat down and went back from 2015 back to like 2010, did keyword searches and scrubbed everything that because I write a certain way where I can find my work on social media because it's kind of like a blog for me, Basically,
Okay.
I'm doing my random rough drafts. They fit into an idea, what I'm saying, that
Right.
I'm formulating. Because, hey, man, it's the cosmic universe of the internet. I can write something and leave it up there and go pull it down wherever I want to. It's the cloud, right?
Right.
So um, after I scrubbed my, my page, and I'm glad I did it because they got rid of my Facebook page with what I would have lost, what I'm saying, a good start point. I still probably could have written it, but like when you start seeing like all of your stuff start to compile, you're like, man, I got like 6 pages in just rough draft. And if you multiply that times 4 or 5, you got a good project, good start point, right?
Right.
So writing the first book, it was just, let me just throw it out there and see if anybody bites.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I self-published, read my own work. I think I went on Fiverr and found somebody to edit. And I know they used some software because it wasn't, what I'm saying, as concise as it could have been,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I know after that, after you publish it, then you get even more people that say, hey, we can rebrand it. You know what I'm saying? And no, if you can rebrand it, I can rebrand it. And so then in the second book, though, I actually paid somebody, to edit my book,
Mm-hmm.
just to have a personal experience. So I did it digitally on Fiverr the first time, and then I compared that to my original work, obviously, and then I paid somebody in person so I could have some comparisons. You know what I'm saying? To see who has my best interest in mind about my audience.
Mm-hmm.
But you've already written 3 books and you're working on your 4th. How hard was it for you to publish the 3rd book with the confidence that you had the second time? Because doing it one time ain't enough. You got to do it twice.
Right.
And I really feel like after twice, you got to do it like 4 or 5 times. You know what I'm saying? Because it just don't stop. You know what I'm saying? Because after you get it done, it's done.
So the 3rd book, I think I was in ultimate confidence mode, but I had to deal with the expectations because people were really looking forward to it. It's actually my best-selling book. So the 3rd, I would say, if anything was hard, it was, living up to the hype, because people, the first book, like you said, is more of a tester. Like, okay, I did it. I can say I'm a published author. I can put that on my resume, but you're striving for more. You're striving for higher titles, best-selling, etc. Esteemed, whatever. So,
you want your flowers.
yeah, you want to swag it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3rd, I'm going to say I had all the confidence in the world to write the 3rd, but I also was dealing with expectations. So each book, I would say the expectations get a little harder, and that's the hard part. Is people are expecting you to, go more. It's kind of like a rapper, the first CD, whatever, was great, excellent, but can you switch your flows up? Can you do different beats? Can you get in different pockets? That's what people are asking this time. So, and you're thinking about that as you're an artist. So I think if anything's hard is dealing with people's expectations and not trying to be too repetitive, because if you write one book and people are rocking with you, if you say some of the same exact things in your second book, they gonna know.
They don't know. They don't know. They're gonna know. So
There you know.
you absolutely right. And maintaining like originality and authenticity,
Mm,
it's not the same thing.
right.
Because like you could have an original outline and you can fill it in with somebody else's authenticity very quickly. You know what I'm saying? Because you could tell an authentic story, but it's not yours.
Mm,
Like people do it all the time on TikTok. They read stuff off of Reddit and they get thousands of views off somebody else's volunteer story.
mm, right.
So I'm very keen about when I promote, what I'm doing. I kind of wanted that. It's a gift and a curse though. You know what I'm saying? Because I kind of want to sneak in and drop my content off, and people just see it and they just take off like wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to really sit up and promote my own stuff because I feel like I think not necessarily a pride thing or whatever. It probably is, but I try not to be narcissistic about my own content. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want it to be successful, there's a degree of narcissism that has to go with it. You have to believe in your product, or nobody else would. Nobody invests in folks that approach them from a half-ass platform.
Right.
Hey, I'm Vic. I'm an okay guy. You know what I'm saying? No,
Right.
no. I'm like you said earlier. You a beast in your lane, and you supposed to meet. You know what I'm saying? Other equivalents of yourself out there, because we all have a comparable individual out there that moves the way that you move. You know what I'm saying? Right. But may do it a little bit differently. So before we get you off of here, I want to go through the last phase of what this platform is about. So for people that are tuning in and wondering what accountable masculinity is, accountable masculinity is like my philosophy, because I used to think about all of the conflicts that men would have internally about who's an alpha and who's a beta.
Right.
And it's so annoying, you know what I'm saying? Because all alphas and all betas are not all accountable.
Talk about it.
So you can be alpha all you want, but if you're not accountable, you're useless.
Right.
You're the problem. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can. There's a need for both the alpha mentality and the beta mentality, because everybody can't lead. Everybody just can't lead.
Right.
And sometimes there's a group of men out there that need women in other areas of their life versus, like men like maybe me or you that don't need a woman for a specific character. You know what I'm saying? I think it's about being complementary, not being subservient. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. Fit, make it fit, make it work.
Yep. And so I am going to pull up, let's see here, what we got. All right, so these are kind of like my personal laws right here. This is accountable masculinity rule number 1. Men focus on men, establish personal accountability standards amongst reasonable men that intend to improve our society, create solutions for the benefit of our society by only discussing tangible outcomes based on our skills and networks. How would you interpret that?
Wow. I love it, especially the part where you say men focus on men, establish personal accountability standards amongst reasonable men. Let's talk about that, man. There's a lot of men who are not reasonable, and they project their unreasonableness per se on everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. You talked about alpha and beta, man. That term is so overused so much on this platform on YouTube that you wouldn't be able to tell what's an alpha or beta anyway.
Nope.
And also, I always say this: a real alpha don't have to tell you who's an alpha, right? Real alpha don't have to make an announcement that he's an alpha. right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's leading their life, you're gonna know. Someone's leading any type of company that don't even have to be a legal company. You're gonna know. So I think it's important to be reasonable. Standards among reasonable men. I really love that. And creating solutions. Got to be solution based.
Yes. Yeah. Can't come in here just, falling into the same standard problem sets.
Mm-hmm.
I believe human beings fall into one of three categories. They either create problems, solutions, or opportunities.
Mm.
If you neutralize those categories, because somewhere you're gonna have the truth on one side, the truth on the other, and then the truth that's in the middle. So, within those three different perspectives, you're gonna have problem solutions and opportunities in every one of them. Just like you said earlier, you took negative criticism and you looked for a way to capitalize on it. You know what I'm saying? Use it to your advantage.
Right.
So this is kind of like, if you're focused on yourself and you're in your bag and you're not being distracted, or you're not making yourself susceptible to distractions, you should be focused on solutions instead of recycling your own problems. So that's kind of like what I'm aiming at with accountable masculinity rule number 1. So let's see
Definitely.
here what we got over here. We'll find 2. Okay, here's number 2. We don't argue with women. Women
No.
have their own issues, and so do men. As men, we can learn to mitigate our issues by observing the conflict management skills of women. By remaining in observation mode, men have the vantage point to avoid cyclic negative competitions and unhealthy conflicts with women. After implementing the findings from the observation into our philosophy, we should be better focused on ourselves. What's understood doesn't need to be said. Accountable men have code.
Love it. Love it. Man, this is so big. If you notice, I don't argue with women on my page. And a
First
lot of
thing I noticed, first, like every time you had somebody that negatively, commented, you just acknowledged that they showed up, and that was it. And that's what I do too.
exactly, you know, there's this there's this unfulfilled metric or hunger for people to argue nowadays. Everybody wants to be right. Everybody wants to be seen as the be all and end all authority on topics, etc. You know, once I make my status, the status is what it is. Now, if you disagree with it, like I always say this on my page, if you disagree with it, no problem, no problem. Just say, hey, I disagree. But we're not about to have a 9 hour comment section of me calling you names, you calling me names. I'm talking about how you look, and I'm talking about your clothes, and I'm talking about what I think you might have or not have, or your personal situations going on. We're not about to do that, right? And I have a 2 comment maximum.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And generally speaking, that comment limit is for the other readers,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an opportunity for me to address it with a level of professionalism that doesn't call my character into question. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because we all have a brand to protect. We also have to maintain a level of class. Somebody got
Mm-hmm.
to display some class, man. You know what I'm saying? Now, I do believe in giving it to people that deserve it, that earn it. Like some people, eventually, you're gonna get that smoke. That's what you came over here for. Especially if all you do is come over here to disagree. I'm gonna tear your
Oh,
ass up.
come on, man. Come
I'm
on
gonna
now.
tear your ass up. You know what I'm saying? Like I write for fun. So if you're gonna come over here being disrespectful, I'm just gonna treat it like you trying to get a trophy off of me, and I'm not the one. You know what I'm saying? But generally speaking, we don't attract that. But when it
Mm-hmm.
does happen, you got to have a 2 comment minimum.
Right.
Because I agree with that too, man. I like that approach. Let me see what else I got over here. Boom. Boom. Number 3, decentralized leadership requires knowing when to lead and when to follow. Must avoid misrepresenting fellow men. Although we are not perfect, we must have redeeming efforts. How would you
Exactly.
interpret that?
In order to lead, you got to know how to follow first anyway. You don't come out the womb knowing how to lead. Someone had to show you certain positive traits or negative so that you recognize what you need to do to be a leader. So that when you finally get in that leadership position, you know what to do. I think it's so important because, I love this platform. Not particularly yours. I'm talking about YouTube in general. I love YouTube, but the problem is there's a message going on that says everybody's a leader. Everybody is just out here, and that's not the case. You can't just, when I was growing up, like as far as sports, there was only one captain on the team. And that's just what it was. And you knew who it was, right? And unless you were a designated captain where maybe the team voted for you to be the captain, then you were not a captain. So when you would get out of line or you'd be out of pocket, that captain would, ring you up real quick, tell you to shut up.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I think it's super important that men know when to lead. Hey, this is a situation that requires leadership. And there's nothing wrong with this. Just because you're not the leader doesn't mean you're a bitch. I think that's super important too. Just because you're in any situation where you're not the authority figure, that doesn't mean you're less than.
I agree with that, man. I had a phone call yesterday with a friend of mine that I've done business with, and I watched him and his wife grow their business. Right, they work in the insurance space, and his wife is super smart on everything all things insurance. Like he is a complementary piece to what they do as a team.
Right.
And in a team effort, you got to get in your box where you're most effective at, right? If like men get told all the time from early on, like you mentioned sports, you get told that you're too fast, too slow, to your hands are trash, your foot speed is this, you can't block nobody, you can't this ain't your sport. You need to go get in the band, you know what I'm saying, or go run track, or go be an archery guy. So,
right.
But
right.
It's to protect you from yourself in some cases, because you can try to overdo something and end up hurting yourself.
Right.
And that's one of the things where like you have to trust, like as when you're a follower, it's not because you can't lead yourself or manage yourself. It's just there's a level of experience that you haven't had yet that translates to the overall picture of everybody participating in a win. If you are terrible at throwing the ball, don't get mad when you can't play quarterback.
Right.
You might need to go pick up some golf clubs. There ain't nothing wrong with that, because you can still be a beast at that too. So
absolutely.
In the example I was given is that the wife is super smart on all things insurance, annuities, and everything else, right? He has the leadership experience because of his military background and just in general. But he knew that he'd be more useful in the capacity that supports her, which was taking care of the kids, handling the admin in the office, handling the discussion up to a certain point. We had to hand it off to her, being able to, execute the tasks that she needs him to do,
right.
that support the overall vision. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, that would be the thing that we would be demanding from, our significant other, if we have that format,
Right.
Being able to demonstrate that you can take somebody else's guidance is very important, just in general for relationship building, not even romantic relationship, just people relationships.
Right.
So it's much more in tune to that, and that's why like I chose the decentralized leadership topic for accountable masculinity rule number 3 is that at some point it ain't gonna be it's gonna be your turn to follow.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't lead every single thing. You know what I'm saying? Because we ain't always effective if you in charge. Sometimes you got to take the objective chair to accomplish the overall mission. All right, we got the last one right here. Accountable masculinity rule number 4. Legacy and equity. Live a life of service towards your community and others. You must be credible and capable of both mentoring and being mentored. You must be receptive and coachable. Being able to instill knowledge and wisdom into others is an act of submission and a privilege.
Absolutely, man. This is when I read this, I just think about balance. I think about order. Are you a man of order? Every man has to ask themselves that question in order to have a functional life. If you look at why a lot of men are not functional, it's because they're not coachable. They don't receive information well. They can't instill knowledge into anything, right? They lack the wisdom or the know-how because they won't listen to anyone. They feel they're above someone telling them, hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z. So when I read this particular rule, I definitely think balance. Are you a man of balance? You can get out on the field, you can coach, you can lead, you can do whatever, but can you receive the information as well that's going to help you and everybody else out?
Yeah, this is why I brought this up at the end because I wanted to be able to capture the context of everything that I've written between rules 1 through 4 with everything that you said. So now you're starting to see the stories that you've already told being echoed in the rules. Because you already told me about how do you handle in the question number 10, right? Was how do you handle criticism and negative reviews? And for the sake of it, I'm going to throw it back up on the stage, back up on the banner to just show it. But this is why accountable masculinity rule number 4 is so important, because once you can accept the negative criticism and reverse it back in a positive way, then rule number 4 shows you that you can accept the criticism and come back and teach, just like you brought up people that have had failed marriages. They probably a wealth of information, failed businesses, wealth of information, because once you get in a position where you can accept the accountability of your successes, failures, or whatever, it's still a win. Because overall it's just an experience. People get paid off of their L's, man. That's why most artists are alcoholics and drug users, and they make the best music. You know what I'm saying? Because they telling you they mistakes. They telling you something that you can relate to, that you can feel a level of empathy for.
Right.
But it's not all false bravado. It's not all good times, because there's no good times without the L's.
Exactly. You appreciate the good times way more because of the L's anyway.
Yep. So, man, you can't spell a million without 2 L's at least.
Come on.
Man,
absolutely.
Well, I dropped your links into the comment section for those of you that are looking to find an outline to the mindset that it takes to write a book. Look in the comments and check out JC's link for his mentorship, for breaking through, breaking barriers, getting your intellectual property on the widest bandwidth possible, so everybody can get a chance to see what you have to offer the world. So I'm going to give you the screen, sir, and I want you to give us your final thoughts before you get out of here.
Absolutely. First, I want to say thank you again. I appreciate this opportunity to be on your platform. It's always an honor to be invited to such a platform. And like I said, you got those 4 rules, so you rocking and rolling. You're already on the right path. But regardless, everybody out there who might be, looking at this, definitely chase your dreams, chase your passions. but most importantly, know who you are. That's going to answer a lot of questions. Know where you're going, right? We have a lot of things in society that influence us. They tell us to, you need to be this way, you need to be that way. And that's part of the bigger issue going on with a lot of people. And that's why a lot of people are unfortunately depressed, right? Because they're trying to fit in, they're trying to be accepted, they're trying to do this. I wanted to be an author. I told earlier the story about someone telling me, you can't be an author. They said you don't have a name, you're not famous, you don't have the credentials, you don't have the people, you don't have the backing. They told me those things, and for a short while, I let it get to me, and I let it, deter me from my goal. But eventually, I gained my self power back, and I realized that I can do this. I don't need all the things that particular person was telling me that I need. All I really needed was my supernatural confidence, and I gained that. Writing is therapeutic. All the writers out there, all the artists out there, be encouraged. Don't worry about what everybody's saying. Anyone who's negative in your life right now, you really need to get rid of anyway, because all that person is going to do is just keep being negative. They're never going to stop being negative. In fact, as you become more successful, or as you gain more progress, they're going to keep being more negative towards you. Then they're going to resent you. Just telling you the truth and how that really goes. So once again, thank you so much for listening to me. My name is JC Jamar Camper. Of course, you can reach me on Facebook, Intellectual Sniper, author JC.
Man, I greatly appreciate you coming through and blessing the platform with the game, your experience. Man, this a age. I call it the age of the healthy flex, because because we spent 40 years flexing unhealthily. You know what I'm saying, for over things that don't matter. So that
Right.
healthy flex, we should be proud that we have the mindset and the outlets that we have in order to get our works out into the world. I think accountable men focus on healthy masculinity. There isn't a process, or ceremony to, acknowledge a man, a man's arrival. And I think we have to be responsible for that. We have to celebrate each other. We have to give each other the flowers that we've earned. And I think a man's flowers are acknowledgement of his work. Because if nobody remembers your name, did you even exist?
There it is.
So
absolutely,
being an author or creator or an artist, any one of those things, or however you want to capture your existence, is like it's one of the most ultimate ways of becoming an immortal, because nobody can take away your work. You know what I'm saying? Like see, these are the things that we think, and it almost sounds, like very self-centered to say, but nobody else is centering their life on yourself. So
yeah, there it is.
So like it's our therapy. I think we need more men to write, because it is therapeutic. It is a form of therapy. It is a therapy exercise. I have definitely seen this in previous therapy sessions where people say, "Hey, go buy some balloons and buy a balloon for everything that bothers you and let it go." You know what I'm saying? I think the book is that. I think it's a reference point to where you were emotionally at some point in your life, and it captures so many different things. And if you write it, you could smell where you were, if you go back and read it.
Absolutely. Just to add to your point, real quick, they say that you'll have two deaths. They say you'll physically die, and then your second death will be the last time someone ever mentions your name.
On that note, I'm not going to say your name anymore. I'm gonna let you tell me. Nah. But I like that though. I think there's symbolism in multiple walks in life if you're paying attention, if you're present, and that's why getting focused on yourself allows you to take advantage of what your environment has to offer, and use your intellect to counter it. And before I go, I just want to say thank everybody. Thank you to everyone that showed up, participated in the chat. Hopefully you guys get a chance to catch this on the re-airing. I'm gonna chop this up too. I'm gonna put it on TikTok and every other platform. I'm gonna send you the raw video as well. Uh, I like to tell everybody else, pay attention to mental health awareness for men. Be gentle with my mental, and men have code. And we out.
Peace.